Last night I had Cameron go over like some C grip leg drag stuff with you. We've been doing a lot of like outside passing, either from leg drags or hand on hip stuff. We'll warm up with the hand on hip review, but then today's focus is going to be ways to pass and get to north-south. Okay, so that's going to be the main focal point today. Okay, so I want you to get with your partner, and again, if the knees are to the chest, we usually want to play with C grips right at mid-shin. If the knees are a little bit further away, we use C grips down at the ankles to create our angle. Now from here, whichever method you guys want to use today, I want you to warm up, get to the hand on hip camp. Now remember, the main focus when I get to a hand on hip is to pin that far hip. So it's okay to get here and camp someone, but it's a lot more effective when I can really pin this far hip and put weight. So when Cole tries to recover and I go to cook him from here, it's pretty difficult, and now I can get good knee to elbow connection. Okay, so use any of the setups that we've been working on. This time I'll use 2 C grips on the shins. I'll turn him, and I'm really trying to pin this far hip and get to my post, get my head as close to that far shoulder as I can, and run my training partner's legs all the way to the side. I'll give you guys 5 minutes total, switch as needed. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now, a lot of times when we get to this hand on hip and knee pose, what's gonna happen is maybe I'm not able to pin this far hip, and they do a good job of keeping knee to elbow in a nice frame here like so. Okay, now, I learned this from Danny the other day in class. Okay, but I kind of made some adjustments to it. So from here, whenever this happens, I'm going to take my hand and either look to take a reverse collar tie or get to my training partner's like upper back shoulder area here. Now as I do this, I go and I start walking around to north-south. Now the way Danny showed it is he like pinned his hand on the floor and he brought his head to the hip. That's good too, but I find when I'm sparring, if I just take my hand out, I feel like I lose a lot of that tension in my training partner, and then they can recover. So as I start to walk to north-south, I drive my elbow first and then my hand. And especially guys like Cole that are really bendy, they'll try to invert and bring either their knee inside or they'll try to bring their leg behind you. So it's important that if I go back or head, as he tries to recover guard, I'm like lifting his shoulders off the mat and going the extra mile. And from here, I like to wipe the legs away, expose the back. Okay. So again, let me use Cameron so you can see as well. Okay. So use any of the entries we've been talking about. I'll use C grips again. I turn him. He camps. He's framing. He's got good knee to elbow connection. I feel like I'm trying. I can't separate. I'm going to replace my head on my hand, go reverse collar tie, slide my elbow through. So don't just abandon and go here. Really slide this through and really pick up his head. Now sometimes I can pass right away here, but most of the time I go the extra mile, take him over. Now the weakness is he can turtle, so we always have to be ready to take our training partners back. So again, this time I use ankle grips. Okay. I feel like I can't really turn him, no problem. So I'll use throw bys. Boom, he's got good frames. Go over the top. Really drive my head, cut my elbow, go the extra mile, and pass. Okay, you can go to the head or you can go to the shoulders. All right, 3, 2, 1. Similar situation, we're trying to pass the north-south today. Now sometimes, another thing that'll happen is if you're doing a good job of loose passing, a lot of times like flexible guys will pick a hip, and I find it hard to get these angles and really get to the outside here. And now I can't really camp my training partner. If I do try to camp, they'll just high leg over. And yep, and now they'll square back up. Okay, so if I ever see him on a hip like so, I immediately take a C grip on his top leg, and I want to bait this leg to try to make a connection. Like I stay here, obviously not at a distance too far where he could just sit up. Okay, but also not at a distance too close where his hands can grab my ankle and then he can fish me and trap me. So I find like this uncomfortable spot, like Cameron will tell you, like you kind of feel like you're like about to get past but not really. Like you feel safe but not too safe. Yeah. So he's gonna be reaching for something. Most of the time this leg reaches, that's when I high step through. Now I'm not gonna go into like the regular high step that we did last week where I step and I point my knee here, so if he does try to get to my legs, I can block his thigh. Okay, instead, we're going to use this to get to north-south. So as he reaches, I high step, and I go the extra mile by stepping through and passing off my grips here. Now, a lot of times what will happen is people will frame really hard, like think Eric, right? Like, I feel like I can't close the space on Eric. My favorite thing to do to him is I kind of like do like a gi pohada, where I just go hips in, and like sometimes that means I sit on his face, hey, but I get the pass, and sometimes I get behind him and take his back. Sorry, Eric. Okay, giving away your moves. So I'm here, I'm passing, he gets to a hip, I'll invite Eric to go, and I step through. My toes are facing, step, pass. From here, he likes to frame a lot, okay, and I feel like I can't dig my head. So I just get an angle, violently pop my hips, and I just kind of sit on his chest, cover the hips, and then go all the way and pass. Okay, one more time. He picks a hip, I wait, okay, I have my C grip, I wait, I step, pass, he's framing, angle, hips, and sit on my partner, and now pass. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now let's look at like the rotolo option. Okay, so here's like something that rotolos are really good at, is where they just go from 2 C grips all the way around to north-south, and then they do a really good job of switching their hips. Okay, so from here, I'm actually gonna mix my grips. Okay, now this hand is gonna go right away to like a backward C grip. So I'm gonna turn my hand, and this hand's gonna go right away to a V grip. This makes this transfer a whole lot quicker than if I go here. It's easy for him to pummel his feet to the inside. When I have 2 C grips, see on my thumb is here, it's super easy for him to pummel. But when I mix up my grips immediately, as I'm going around, it's hard for him to pummel, and now I can switch here, okay? Now, same thing, he's posting on my hips. The rotolos are really good at like moving their hips and then burying their head here, okay? Now, same issue as the first one. If guys are really flexible, they like to throw these legs, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, this way?
Kind of, so this leg behind my back, and like, invert and like or like the arm lock you do sometimes, or go back, or sometimes this one go behind into my hip.
Oh, here.
Yeah, and they'll like try to come behind you. Go ahead, take my back, and they'll take your back. Okay, so that's kind of one of the weaknesses of when you bury your head here. So just like the first move, get to the collar and like lift. So try to invert, take my back.
Yep.
Really try, really try. I just start picking up his head, and it makes it hard for him to invert. I can also pick up the shoulder, so the more his knees go to his chest, the more I just have to lift him this way here. Okay, so again, knees are to chest. I get an angle as I mix my grips, and I run around. He posts, I start shifting my hips and burying my head. Get to the head and start picking it up, so if he tries to invert, it's hard. But eventually, I get my head to one side and cover his hips with my other arm here. All right, let's try that out. 3, 2, 1.